Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to.
Join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical, transformational journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is Pod 127. My name is Jay, and I'm with my co-host, as always, Lita Herman. Come on down.
Welcome back, everyone. And today we're continuing our conversation about the yin and yang aspects of each of the 5 elements. And in this case, we're moving on to the metal element today.
Yeah, that's right. Let's get right to the point. And let's get down and groovy.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit more downward metal energy than our usual bubbly.
Yes, and those of you who've listened to our episodes on 5-element music, you're right. Metal loves groovy
Down
music.
and groovy.
They have the groove. So we've talked a lot about, how metal energy descends. That's why the music gets so groovy. But today we're going to talk about why that is and how there is a yin way to descend and a yang way to descend. And that's the difference between the lung and the colon.
Is that like taking the stairs or taking the escalator? I'm just asking, like 2 different ways, right? You can go the stairs, or you can go, you could take the elevator. Even.
You could take that's a very different way of descending.
So the lung and the colon, which are the 2 metal organ officials in the kingdom of you.
Yes.
Right? Not you the great, but you the great. Right? Boy, I'm on it today. And people are like, what? If you know, you know. Right?
If you know you the great, you know.
Right. And we want all the metal people out there to understand the difference between the more yin version of the metal and the more yang version of the metal. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
And that has a lot to do with talking.
Yeah. And I'm doing my metal voice, which, I'm trying not to be too, I'm just trying to have people lean in and listen. What is she saying? But before we get into each aspect of the metal, let's update people on this podcast, what's going on and what's coming up in the Alchemy Learning Center.com.
Great.
I say we get it out of the way. And
Let's get it out of the way. Yeah, we're wrapping up this 5-part series on the yin and yang aspects of each element. And I just want to thank you so much for all the listeners out there who have been reaching out about this particular series. It seems like a lot of people found it very helpful in terms of figuring out themselves or their clients if they're Chinese medicine practitioners. So I just love it when people do reach out and share. And the best way to find us is to join our Facebook group, Inspired Action.
And also you can connect through email. You can send us an email as well.
At Lita@inspiredactionpodcast.com or Jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
Right. And you can always find us in the Learning Center.
Yes.
That's where we live.
AlchemyLearningCenter.com.
Yes. And
Great.
so what else do we have going on?
Well, we've got exciting news about what's coming up next for the podcast.
What?
Yeah.
Let me know, please.
Okay. Yes, Jay needs to be enlightened as well.
That's an understatement.
Yes. Because we have a Ghost Points book coming out this
What?
summer.
We do?
We do.
You have another book?
Another book.
Wow.
And I'm giving a talk on the Ghost Points for practitioners imminently this coming week.
So if you're live in the motion, I don't know, you might get this by the 11th. It might be coming out on the 11th.
Yes.
So quickly run to eLotus and sign up. But you can get it anytime.
You can probably get it after the fact.
moment. That's right. It's more than a talk, Lita. You made I'm just going to have a little talk. No.
Yeah, no, it's a 4-hour class on eLotus, so you can check that out. And we're going to begin a new series of episodes around the same time on the Ghost Points and how they can be useful for your own self-cultivation.
Yes, that's the theme we're kind of tapping into, and we're getting a really good response from that. So stay tuned on that. And we're happy, as always, to be thanking you for doing your subscribing and rewriting reviews for the podcasts and the books and all that stuff. So we're really focused on the podcast. So right now, get those reviews in if you can. A couple stars, a couple words. Doesn't have to be fancy. Or maybe a couple more than a couple stars.
And thanks to all of you. Yes.
If you're going to give a couple, maybe just hold on to them.
Yes.
You can keep those.
You can keep your 1 stars.
Right. I mean, if you really feel that way, I'm giving my sarcastic metal humor.
Oh, that's what you're doing.
Yes.
I wonder if the metals will pick up on that.
I don't know. They're I'll give you that 1 star.
And thank you for all of you who've been sharing this podcast with your friends and family because, a lot of people have been spreading the word and it's working. The podcast listenership is growing. I think thanks to you, just say, hey, check out this podcast to your friends. And it really
It's working.
helps.
Thank you. Keep doing it. Keep
Yeah.
spreading it. Keep spreading the love. But and
Yeah.
if you want more on the 5 elements or alchemy, the ghost points, we've got it at the alchemylearningcenter.com
Yes.
with classes and guided meditations and events coming up and all kinds of stuff. And
And if you want more about the elements in particular,
more.
we suggest that you take our 5 elements class, which includes a detailed quiz for you to help you decide what element you are. So you can also take that at alchemylearningcenter.com.
And if you still want more, even more, you can send us your walking videos. We get them all the time. Just film yourself walking away from the camera, but don't keep walking. Like you got to come back eventually.
Yes.
Right? You don't want to leave your phone on the ground or something, right? But come back to the camera, go away, normal pace, and then a fast walking pace. Like someone's about to pick up your phone and run away with it. That fast. But not running. And then you can send them to us, or you could post them in the Facebook group, which happens from time to time. And we'll help you narrow down.
Yeah, it's fun when you post them in the Facebook group because we can all look at them and kind of get a sense of what's a wood walk look like? What's a fire walk look like?
Yeah, what does it sound like?
Yes.
And what does a metal walk for today? Metal walk look like?
Yeah.
But we've already covered that, but we would love to help you out. So again, reviews on the podcast would be fantastic. Keep telling your friends about it. Fantastic. We're going to do some upcoming events. Fantastic.
Okay, so that reminds me, Jay, we also have one more event coming up that's a live event that we're going to be talking about the 13 ghost points and working with animals.
Wow. How are you going to get them to wear the headphones?
Yes, I don't know.
Do they have their own Zoom account? I don't know.
I don't know, but it is
Just have a bowl of treats ready and your pet and your animal companion, I like to say.
Yes.
And listen to it. And when is that?
It's July 10th, and it's with the College of Integrative Veterinary Therapies. And you can check out more about that event on our website, alchemylearningcenter.com, in the events section.
Wow, that's cool. And Lita, you really didn't mention our book, like a little bit more detail.
Yes.
Like pre-order, order.
Yes, it's not available quite yet for ordering, but
This is June, but it's coming out in June.
In July.
Oh, July. Oh, that's right. July 17th.
Yes.
July 17th. I just remembered.
Yes.
So you got a little bit of time.
Yes.
So July 17th.
So we'll let you know on this podcast when it'll become available, and we hope that you'll enjoy it.
So if
you
you're
decide
interested
to check it out.
on more of the ghost points in your life and possibly your clients, if you're a practitioner,
Yes.
this will hopefully help.
Yes. Okay.
All right, let's go. Connection and loss. How about we just review metal a little bit in general? Give a little people to get into that metal state, Lita.
Yes, that's good. That's a good idea. Yeah, metals are all about connection and loss. And it's really hard for people who are not metal to understand that that means connection and loss have to be at the same time.
Yeah, the more that the metal person feels connected to something, they are simultaneously aware of the fleeting nature of the material world and that this thing or person that they have this connection with will be gone someday. Like they're already thinking about it at the same time.
Yeah. And you can think of it as like holding space between connection and loss, like balancing the space between life and death, birth and death. And so they see through what we call reality almost into the beyond, like when they say part the veil. They're just kind of aware of what Taoists call reality as maybe, I don't know.
An illusion.
An illusion, yeah. So exactly.
Not a delusion, but an illusion.
Not a delusion. Hopefully not a delusion.
But an illusion.
Yeah. And all of this, everything we see, it's all like a dream. Or for those of you who remember the Alan Parsons project.
For you, that one person, Alan Parsons, that project you had, what's the lyric, Lita? Sing the lyric.
Where all we see or seem is but a dream within a dream.
Yes, that was a chart topper in what year? Like 1950?
70 something.
Oh boy, that is an obscure reference, even for you. Okay, I'm not even getting into that because you're talking about like the 70s maybe.
Yeah, like 1976. I cannot confirm or deny whether I was alive in 1976.
Moving on. Okay. Oh, you were totally alive. You were obviously listening to the Alan Parsons project.
Yes.
Going, wow, they're going to make it big.
Yeah, because of us.
Because that's their dream within a dream.
Yes.
I'm sure they're amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm sure metal people probably have the vinyl.
Yes.
Right? Of
Oh,
the
absolutely. Good
From
point.
the Alan Parsons. Go
Good
through your vinyl.
If you have the vinyl, send us a photo
screenshot
of it, and we'll share
of
it on
that
the
song.
Facebook group.
Yes. Because I know there's a metal person out there who's already going through their vinyls. Oh, I have that.
I think I know someone who might have that,
who's
actually.
metal. Yes. Okay. Moving on from that riveting, obscure reference. So what is it? Wait, when seem a dream within a dream. Say it again.
You want me to say it again? See, now you like it.
Can you sing it?
Now you like it.
How does it? Was it folky? Was it pop? Was it down and groovy?
I think it was in the rock genre.
Okay.
Where all
like under a rock genre.
yes. Where all we see or seem is but a dream within a dream.
Wow, that's deep. I actually like that.
That was my metal voice.
Yeah.
Okay. So metals have a ton of things they're always balancing. In fact, balance alone is just a really good word for them.
Yeah, I like to always reference like the scales of justice, that symbol where you're like the statue's holding and weighing the wrong versus the right.
Yes. And if they're goody two-shoes, on the one hand, which a lot of metals are, they also love to kind of misbehave on the other
like
hand.
a little sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby.
Yes. And they don't want to be confined or too contained by all the rules that they actually want to follow at the same time. So they move into things that aren't that bad, that are just out of society a bit and make them feel a little naughty, but not bad.
I'm not touching that one either. But that could be anything. It doesn't have to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It could just be wanting to be an individual and living a clean life of their senses.
Yes.
Like all of their senses. So this metal recap is going downhill fast.
Yes. Well, if you take too much heroin, that's not cool, either, because
You probably won't remember if you take too much.
yes, you won't be here anymore.
That's right.
Right. So you have to find a way to live the fullness of your senses, but stay on this planet.
That's
somehow.
another crazy example. Can we go a little less extreme than heroin overdose?
Okay. I know that, a lot of, rock musicians in the past have died of overdoses, and they were definitely balancing on that razor's edge between
That's
life
a
and
good
death.
razor's edge is good.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's like life and death. Like,
Yeah, and that's not typical. I mean, we're not trying to say that's the norm. but-
Maybe come down from the stratosphere of overdose rock musicians who are on the razor's edge. So maybe talk a little bit about normal.
Yes.
And I don't like that word normal, but like
Yeah.
every day,
Every day.
who's listening to this podcast.
Okay. So today we're comparing the yang aspect of metal, which is associated with the colon or the large intestine, and the yin aspect of metal, which is associated with the lung.
So we're going to call them, we've named them. We have the Minister of Breath.
Yes.
And then we have the Poopy Gem Finder.
Okay.
Right?
Or just AKA the gem finder. Or
I
we
like
could
the Poopy Gem
We
Finder.
could call it the recycler as well.
The recycler.
Okay.
The sifter
The
of
sifter
Ish.
of brown stuff.
looking for gems.
Yes. So our conversation, is, obviously breaking down here,
We're
but
finding that balancing act, and we're on the razor's edge.
we're finding the balancing act, and it's often between these two very different views of the world, from the colon, which is basically hanging out in the ditches of the world.
Like in the poop,
Yeah.
basically, the pooper.
Yes.
But in a beautiful way.
Yes, because
In a
they're
beautiful way.
Yeah, because even in the garbage, even in the, the sewers of the world, you can find the gems. And actually, I was just listening to NPR the other day, and someone fished out a safe from a lake with
I heard
magnet.
$100,000.
$100,000.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That was a colon person. That was a, gem finder.
Yeah.
So there you go. So what is good about, living that life, being on the streets, maybe living out of a van, like that movie Nomadland, and being totally free to do whatever you want. It's like the preciousness in the absurdity of life. And that's the colon's view of the world.
Yeah, I really did like that movie, Nomadland.
Yeah.
You should watch it if you're trying to study a little bit about metal.
Yeah.
Not the feel-good movie of the summer.
No.
But you will feel something.
But it's an amazing, yes, it's an amazing show about living free from society, but also wanting to find connection in that.
Yeah, and I think in that movie, since we're talking about it, she was sifting through the poop, like trying to find the gems of
she
life
really
in her
was.
own rules, her own way.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned on this podcast before, but the tension between connection and loss from this perspective, again, that movie, Nomadland, is just how to, connect, but still be free.
Yeah. And remember, we're always talking about a continuum. She lived more in the disconnect and the grief of losing her spouse.
And her life.
Yeah. And where her only connection was that van and it was her home on wheels.
Yeah, and she collected things that might be useful or interesting to her and maybe not for someone else. Again, someone else's trash is someone's treasure, right? She was living the colon life.
Yeah. And that's not to say that all colons are unhomed at all. They all love stuff, though. They like to collect ideas. Those are all these little gems. And so we're going to talk more about what that looks like in a bit.
Yeah, they're not all on the move, but we do have talked about the magic carpet ride in the past.
Yeah.
How they like to go from place to place.
Yes. All metals do, even the lung and colon,
Right.
both.
So there we go. Let's talk about the lungs.
Yeah, so the lungs.
The minister of breath.
Yes, the official title for the lungs is the lung holds the office of the minister and chancellor. The regulation of the life-giving network stems from it.
All right, let's bring that down to simple talk.
Yes. Okay, well, before I answer that, I have to put it in context, the importance of this role. So when we talk about the meridians of the body, we say there are 12 meridians, but really it's kind of one complete circuit, one meridian of the flow of chi throughout the entire body. So when we think of it that way, we say that the lungs, in fact, the first point on the lung channel is the very first point for the whole circuit.
Lung one.
Yes. So in a way, this is the most important official of all the officials in the body. It represents our first breath in life when we're born.
Yeah, when we were spanked and sucked in the air to let out that scream. Thank you, metal people.
Yeah, right.
Terror of when we were born. But no, it's true that it's so profound when you say it like that.
Yes. Is that a bit of metal sarcasm there?
Just a little. No, it's true.
Yes.
It is true.
Yes. And then we should say, Jay, the liver is equally important to the lungs because it's the last point on the circuit. So liver 14, the gate of hope. And that's the hope that whatever comes after death is going to be beautiful when you stop breathing.
So you get both. You get the start and the finish.
Yes.
Right.
So the lung as minister is second in command in the kingdom of you, where the heart is the emperor, obviously number one official, and the obviously, and the lungs is the minister and chancellor, the second in command, sitting closest to the heart and receiving communications from the heart emperor.
Which makes the minister of breath type of person the ultimate servant, the servant of their own heart, which is, as the emperor represents, the divine in you.
Yes.
How pretty is that?
Yeah. Oddly, the heart, though, never actually speaks.
Smart. That's an odd concept, but I get it. People are always saying, I'm listening to my heart or I'm following what my heart wants. Well, It doesn't actually speak.
Isn't that strange? The heart just shines the light.
There's nothing strange about this podcast. That was sarcasm.
Okay, very good. Very good, Jay. And it's up to the minister, the lung official, to intuit what the heart wants and then present that to the rest of the kingdom. The edicts of the heart come through your lungs.
And also, I remember in the other podcast, I don't remember what number, the small intestine we described as the ear of the heart.
Yes.
What podcast, Lita?
125.
Yeah, how do you know that? Well, that wasn't too far back.
Okay.
So the ear.
I'm glad you brought that up because the small intestine, though, it isn't listening to what the heart is saying.
Because it's not saying anything.
Because it's not saying anything. It's listening for harmony, for resonance. Remember we said the heart has a note. It's like, Is there harmony between the things in the outer world with the things that are harmonious to the heart? That's the listening that the small intestine does.
So we'll talk for a second about how that is different from the minister's job.
The heart emperor doesn't speak to the minister. It just shines its light. And, intuition is so big for metals. So this lung minister role works only on intuition. The minister intuits what the heart wants by facing that light all the time.
And once it intuits what the heart wants, it's the minister of breath's
Yes.
job to issue the edicts of the heart to all the other organs and the kingdom of you.
Yes.
Not you the great, although you could be great. I'm just joking again. Boy, that's the second you the great.
Yeah.
If the heart wants you to walk in nature, it's the minister's job to instruct the kidneys and the bladder to go to the bathroom first before you go take that walk in the woods,
Yes.
right?
That's a good point.
Which represents the ability to walk through your life. So
Yeah.
plan those rest break stops properly.
Yes. And
Otherwise, those kidneys will
Yeah.
you're not intuiting that. I
Yes.
just drank a Starbucks.
yes, there you go. The minister is also like a rooster crowing in the morning.
You have these crazies today. This is
Another metaphor.
Oh my God.
But what is
That's a cock-a-doodly-doo big one. I can't even go there. You need to change that now.
Well, think about the rooster.
I try not to. I only have chickens.
It cockle-doodle-doos in the morning, and it's like so serious. It's like it is issuing the edicts to the land.
It's like, get up and lay some eggs.
yeah,
Right?
there you
And
go.
get over here
Yeah.
and let me say hi to you.
Get busy.
Yeah, I get it. That does seem like metal in a way that they just intuitively have a job. They do it and, they get everyone to just move along and get their life going.
Yeah.
That's the intuitive skill of metal. And that's different than the wood oracle, the hope and the oomph and the divination ability of wood.
Yeah, that's a good point. The divination has to do with the future. It's like a knowing of what's going to happen and what steps need to be taken now based on those future events. So it's all the voluntary things we get to choose to do in life, whereas metal intuition is just a knowing about what needs to happen today, the general administration of the kingdom.
Especially if you're a rooster
Yeah.
and chickens.
We have to breathe. We have to eat. We have to digest. We have to poop. These are involuntary. Even the need to walk in nature because we have to move our bodies.
I agree. I think that should be like that.
Yeah.
We just need that.
It might seem like it's involuntary, but it's essential. And so how we do those things, maybe we need a little bit of the small intestine, the supreme sorter to come in and say, well, this is a good idea. But the minister says, we have to eat now. Wait, this food isn't good. This food isn't bad. That is bad. That might be the sorter again. But the intuition tells us it's time to eat, not what to eat. And the wood oracle is that future telling. It's a higher level strategy. What choices do we want to make to create a better future? So metal intuition isn't about that. It should feel like it's involuntary. We have no choice. We have to listen to it. It's not about free will because the heart has demanded it, has commanded it, in fact. So you can imagine that minister has to spend the day facing the heart emperor, or what we call the supreme controller, all day, just stand there and face it in order to serve it. But then every day at dawn, like the rooster, the minister turns away from the heart and faces all the other officials of the kingdom and then issues the edicts for the day, the wishes of the emperor. But when that's done, it turns back to the heart, and it's a role of complete submission to the heart.
So why does it have to be the lung metal person in that role? What enables the minister to be in the complete submission role?
So think about the metal element. It embodies this intriguing duality that there's just inherent in everything about it, two sides. In this case, on the one hand, it's hard as steel. Yet on the other hand, it's malleable. How can something maintain like that integrity while being also malleable and adaptable? So if you think about the wood element, once you carve a piece of wood into, a serving spoon, You can't then recarve it into like a toy doll. Like wood can't be.
Well, you could if it was tiny,
Yeah, maybe.
like a miniature.
Yes.
Like
But it's not something that's easily reformed, recrafted.
you could make a toothpick.
You could. Because wood is very creative, and Jay is showing us that right now.
Strategizing.
Yes.
I'm strategizing what you could do with the serving spoon once you carve it.
But you can't melt it down and start all over. Let's put it that way.
No. Well, you could take wood and wet it and turn it into a pulp and make it into paper.
There you go. There's
Not exactly.
a little bit of adaptability in wood.
Just a little bit.
But metal, you can melt it down and reform it countless times.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So despite its malleability, it never loses its core essence. Its integrity remains intact.
Yeah.
And to achieve this transformation, you need fire.
Of course you do.
Yes, the element of fire. The heart is the fire element. Your heart needs a servant that can morph into anything required. While the minister is standing facing the emperor all day, it becomes the adaptable, molten metal that can meet any demand of the heart. But when the minister turns to issue the heart's decrees to the kingdom, the minister becomes resolute as steel, unwavering, uncompromising, everything being like clear cut.
That's the black and whiteness of metal, right? So
Yeah.
that's the minister. It is the closest to the emperor in a way that can take any shape without losing the integrity of serving the heart. Remember, we all have metal in us somewhere. We all
Yeah.
have fire. We all have wood.
We all have lungs.
Yep, we all have that. So again, you can see if someone's doing something that their heart's not in it,
Yeah.
that passion, or they're just doing a service that they really don't want to do.
Right.
And it could make them like not happy. You
Yeah.
can see where it can get out of balance.
Yes.
Really easy.
Yes. And it's important to note that the metal element, the lungs, the minister is never going to try to usurp the supreme controller's power. The liver might try that.
What?
Yeah, so woods and waters can try to take over because they have so many goals and ambitions, but metals, they always remain steadfast. And the lung is the only official that can be relied upon like that. It even has the rare authority to dethrone an emperor who has strayed from being guided by the divine. But that act is never driven by personal motives or goals. It's always a clear sign from the divine.
Is that like survival?
Maybe.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when
Intuitively.
Yes. So when we say metal is yin on the outside and yang on the inside, this is what we mean. The malleability is external and allows metal to be whatever it needs to be. But inside, it's as strong and unyielding as cold steel.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes me think that the other thing that metal is good for in this case is that your heart, hey, it just made me think of the iron lung.
Yeah, right.
The
Yeah,
iron lung.
exactly.
Right? It's
Yep.
metal and it can,
Yep. There
no
you
matter
go.
what.
Breathing.
No matter what.
Yes.
But yeah, so it made me think about that, which maybe or maybe not is good for this talk right now, is that your heart emperor doesn't want a chatterbox sitting next to you, distracting you with its dull, idle thoughts, right? It doesn't want that.
Good point. Yin on the outside means the minister is mostly quiet, unless there's something to be said. It also doesn't get dazzled by being next to the royalty or the brilliance of light emanating from the heart. A lot of people, they get around the, stars and they all that light shining. They get,
Like stars in the sky?
no, like famous
Hollywood
people.
stars?
Yeah, Hollywood stars. They get all flustered and they talk too much, and they're nervous.
Starstruck?
Starstruck. So the metal element also is very shiny, so it doesn't get fazed by the beauty of the heart light. That's why it can stay quiet and just reflect the light back to the heart with its polished metal surface.
Just like a mirror, Lita, right? So I hope all you heart mirror people that we talked about in the other podcast are listening to this, because perhaps every heart mirror person needs a metal person around them in their circle, so to speak. So for once they can see themselves instead of reflecting back to everyone else. They can see themselves.
Good point.
Right?
That's a really good point. I love that because, when the emperor looks at the minister, they finally get to see themselves in the reflection instead of always being the one reflecting everyone else. I love that.
And that's that deep sense of loyalty behind that, a complete willingness to die for the emperor.
Yeah. And you might assume the pericardium, the heart protector, would be the one with that much loyalty. But surprisingly, the heart protector is rather wimpy and would kind of flee from danger. It's actually the lungs that would take the bullet if necessary.
Hopefully you don't take a bullet in the lungs.
Yeah,
And then
but
it's lights out.
But it would. It would. That's the vulnerability of the lungs as they envelop the heart within your body.
That's funny because we kind of think about metal people as very cloudy, which they can be on the outside, sometimes. And that maybe they make that assumption that means they're wimpy.
Yeah.
It's not the truth, right? That is what we don't see about metal on the inside is they are not wimpy. Yeah. Nothing is going to phase them. Metal is the strongest element, really. It's the strongest one.
Yeah, we like to say it's the one that's like rapiers. If push comes to shove, and we don't really recommend ever shoving a metal person.
Especially if they have a rapier in their hand.
I was going to say the weapons will come out. Remember, when we describe a metal person as the judge on the bench, it means they're delivering the sentence. In a way, they're kind of like the executioner with that judgment call, wielding the sword, poised to cut off your head.
Yeah, exactly. If you think of an executioner in medieval times, way back then when that Alan Parsons project was going on, there was nothing they would refuse if the emperor commanded it. Okay, whatever it is asked, the executioner does it quietly without fuss. It just off with their head, right?
Yeah.
Or they might be like a ninja assassin in the night where the dead didn't even know what happened.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say really quick, metal people are sometimes just the sweetest, kindest people, soft and gentle on the planet.
Almost always.
Right?
They're very kind and gentle, and they want to be nice, but inherently in them, it's not that they're not nice, it's that they have to command. And so this is true even for yourself because, you all have metal in you. Inside your own kingdom, we say that the lungs are in charge of life and death. And when it's your date with destiny, so to speak, the lungs have to take you to death because you can't have a person wandering around like a zombie, especially if your emperor has kind of left the scene. It's no longer in charge.
And the minister of breath is so strong, but you don't necessarily see that strength on the outside. You can't say by looking at someone on the outside, right?
Right, how strong they are. Yeah, it's that inner strength greater than all the other officials and a quietness that's really not phased when everyone else is freaking out. In fact, the minister sits at the door to the heart and won't let any chaos into the heart.
Yeah, it makes me think of the word composure. They don't ever lose that composure.
Yeah.
Or hopefully they don't.
Yeah, the only challenge is the rest of the world keeps trying to make them become more outgoing, louder, excitable. When I say we, I mean a lot of the fires out there. We want them to be more social, more like us.
And they really just need to be left alone, Lita. Just kind of like quiet in their connection with, so many different things without having to show that many emotions. It's not like they don't have them. They just don't have to show them.
They actually have tons of emotions, but they might just be like smiling on the inside.
Yeah, I'm sure many metal people have been walking down on the street or out and about. And people are like, smile more. And they just want to flip the bird because they're,
Yes.
probably okay on the inside, happy.
Yes. But, even if they're crying, it might just be on the inside. You might not see the tears. They can't just flip themselves inside out and be young on the outside. It's like how metal in autumn puts things aside to be stored for the winter. And especially the lung minister types, their strength and passions on the inside. And actually in summertime, it's odd. Like wood people, they're going to wear very little clothing.
Yeah, because I sweat like crazy.
Yeah. And they're supposed to sweat because they're young on the outside. But metals, they have to keep that yang in.
I'm letting that heat out.
Yeah. So they do really well with nice gradual temperature changes. They're not like going to be really into saunas and cold plunges because that's going to be really dysregulating for them. Whereas, wood people, that's more very enticing. Like they like that, extreme, like they love saunas, wood people.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people, not just one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But metal needs the balance of not very hot, not very cold. And that's because, yang in wood has to release to the exterior all the time. So they like to sweat. Too much heat is really bad when it's on the interior. So the woods have to open up all the pores.
We are mentioning wood and metal a lot today because they're on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Yet they still, I think, have a lot in common. But today we're kind of talking about the opposites.
Yeah. So this is when we're constantly asking metals, like, it's kind of like the sweating. Why can't you just open up like a wood person and
let your emotions, let them sweat right out.
Yeah.
No.
And that's the worst thing a minister can do is, quote unquote, lighten up.
Yeah, that's not what they want to do. No.
And a lot of the spouses of metal do that to them, especially fires who want metals to be less serious, or earth with a metal person, the earths want to talk more about their feelings, and they're trying to get that metal person to turn inside out. And it's like their instincts belong deep inside. And so they don't look emotional.
I agree with that, Lita. And I think sometimes that comes across maybe sharply to other people. And we know, like when they call out something that comes across as harsh or judgmental, but that's really maybe not how they feel.
Yeah. So we don't want to get confused. They look strong and they're like that, but the lungs is the most fragile organ, and metals are fragile on the outside. So we say that the yin organ holds something, and for the lungs, it holds a space, the space between you and not you, the space where things come in and move out. Receiving and expelling air and qi, that's the idea of respiration. But even the skin, which the lungs are in charge of, even the skin breathes.
Even though they're malleable, Lita, it's actually could be hard for them to go along with the crowd because of that integrity. They're always going to be like telling us like it is. Like, remember, they're black and white, so they're going to tell us like it is.
Very moral. That's the integrity. So for the woods out there who always find a way to make something work, like to fudge the rules a little bit.
I prefer bending the rules.
Yes.
Although I do like fudge.
Then the wood people, they want the metals to loosen up. Yeah, fudge. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Not a colon reference.
Oh, that's not even sarcastic. That's just dirty humor. Okay. That's Lita being naughty.
So
they loosen up their morals.
Woods want them to loosen up their morals.
Yeah. I think for wood, perhaps it's like the morals are about justice, that those who are unable to protect themselves aren't being taken advantage of. But for metals, I think it's much more about the details. How do we comport ourselves in general? The rules need to be followed, black and white. This is it. Tell us like it is, right? We just keep saying that over and over, but that's kind of what it's like. Yeah,
but on the other hand, we want them to be gentler and not so cutting. And so basically they have a tough time in society is what we're trying to say, at least in this wood culture of the U.S. Maybe in the UK, which is a metal culture, or in Japan, which is a metal culture, that's going to be a lot easier for a metal person. It's really about what the culture at large values for all the elemental types.
Sure. I think for the metal energetic type in general, though, wherever you are, they love hanging with other metals. So they're kind of together.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, because they really get each other. And it's such a relief to hang out with someone who doesn't have an agenda.
So they find their way. They get through life. They're not like ostracized in this wood culture.
And it's so rare for other, elemental types to not have an agenda. So two metals, they get together and they both see each other really deeply. And remember, metals have that X-ray vision. So they are completely real with each other. There's no hiding.
They don't even have to wear the glasses.
Right.
They just got it.
It's really cool. And there's another aspect of the minister that doesn't get talked about as much for metals, especially the lung minister types. What is the basic function of the lungs?
To breathe, to keep us alive.
Exactly. And breathing.
I got it right.
Yeah. Good job. Gold star today. And breathing requires repetitive rhythm. The rhythm of life. It's the day-to-day grind of life. All the stuff that has to happen to keep life going. In fact, the lungs are responsible for the rate of the heartbeat.
Wow, I bet you a lot of people don't think about that.
No. And this is why the lungs are in charge of the regulation of maintenance of life. I always say, even if it's not fun, they'll do it for the good of all. They'll do the bureaucracy, Jay. You hate bureaucracy. They'll do the administration. So the wood people don't have to. This all needs to be run by someone, and that's the minister's job.
The minister of breath is responsible for the running as well. The lungs need to work first.
Yeah.
Right? If you can't get breath, you can't run.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There you go.
Minister of breath.
Yes.
It's good for running.
Yeah, so bureaucracy just drives wood people nuts, and it can't, it's like they can't even be around that. All those documents need to be signed and dealt with.
No, I don't like to do that.
Yeah, but someone has to do it, and that's why metals are in service to the rest of us. They'll do the laborious administration of life, like breathing. I mean, breathing is most of the time, it's kind of boring.
I don't think it's boring.
Well, we mostly ignore it.
Well, unless you're doing breathing exercises and then you're really focused on it. I mean, I don't know. When you realize how awesome breathing is, hello.
Yes. But then you realize it's happening 24/7 and maybe you lose interest again.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to do breathing exercises every day. How long does that last?
Until you fall asleep.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But this is the life of metal. Things are so crucial to life that must be done, but no one else wants to do them. It reminds me of this guy who served on all these nonprofit boards, and it was really taxing to do all that work, but he couldn't say no.
Why?
It was like involuntary. He had to show up for it all the time. And if you think about the lungs, it's like they never give themselves the option to take a break, to sit this one out. Never.
Maybe he was Metal Earth.
Yeah. And they just continue until they die. They don't sit it out.
Oh, boy, just right to death.
Yeah, of course. It's about metal. So it's very hard to say no when people clearly need the cool, collected mindset of metal to run things. And it feels like there's just no choice.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when I'm working with metal, people who are metal first or second, it's about having that conversation that they get to say no to anything they don't want to do. And they're like, they don't, that's a really tough concept for them, but you don't have to be a human lung and breathe for all the people all the time. We all have lungs too, like you can be kind of selfish and just do your own lungs.
In a good way.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Selfish in a good way.
Yeah, and that's hard for metals to embrace.
Like they got to say no. They got to say yes to the no.
Yes. And there's often a time in their lives when they might be selfish because others might be taking advantage of them and their willingness to do so much. And
it's hard for metal people to just take care of themselves.
That's really hard. And if they say no, they now have to watch others do a really bad job at what they were doing so well, which can be crushing because it's like watching a really well-manicured garden go back to the wild due to lack of care.
Wow. They just don't want the precision to go away, right? Because it's automatically. They like to cross the I's, dot the T's. They have so much attention to detail. Yeah, I get that.
And then they have to walk away and watch someone else let everything slip through the cracks. And that's hard. So moving on, I think we're getting the idea of the minister, the yin aspect of metal. How about if we talk about the yang aspect of the large intestine?
Sure,
let's move along, Jay.
Move along. Everything likes to say moving in the colon, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
You want that thing moving.
Yes.
You don't want it backed up.
No. And the official title is about moving something along, actually. So that's perfect. It's like a conveyor belt. So the large intestine is called the holder of conveyances. And it's also said that transmutation and transportation exit from it.
Conveyance. I get that, a conveyor belt, but funny to think that transmutation and transportation exit is, doesn't poop exit out that way?
Yes.
Right, that's where the conveyor belt's going, right?
I guess it's the end of the road in that case.
Yeah, right, a good flush.
And isn't the colon like 5 feet long when it's stretched out?
Is that 5 feet for every person?
I don't know.
I mean, if you're only
Not a
5 feet
child.
tall, then you have a 5 foot long colon? Or is that for Andre the Giant, like 5 foot? I know it's long, and I know it has a lot to do with conveying poop.
Yes.
Like a long poop conveyor belt.
Yes. And so we talked a lot about transformation and transportation in the last episode because that's what the spleen does. And we called that function a little bit of magic that makes something usable by your body.
That's like taking the bite of the apple, and the apple now becomes part of you, like on a deep, deep level.
Yes. And it's a little bit different than that for the colon because even though you think everything that's moving through the colon is just waste that needs to be excreted, that's not true. As we said before, the colon does a lot more than just move the poop out.
No, it like looks for the gems, right?
Yes.
I don't think people think about looking through the poop for the gems.
The digestive system just dumps a bunch of stuff without any discrimination. into a garbage pile and sends it down the conveyor belt. And it's kind of how most people are about their own garbage. We just put a bunch of stuff in our garbage and we don't think, hey, can I reuse this? Maybe I can recycle this piece of garbage.
So instead of maybe calling the large intestine the trash collector, how about garbageologist?
Garbageologist?
Yeah, it's like
what is that?
Science and person who studies garbage.
The garbologist.
Garbageologist.
Let's
I'm garbling the word. I looked it up before we got on. I Googled it. Garbologist.
Let's garble that word.
Oh my God. It is a real word though, by the way. I Googled it. So it must be true.
So that would definitely be a large intestine type, but I'm not sure that's
You could
the
come up
right
with a different
name.
word in your own language.
I think recycler is a really good word. I liked gem finder too.
Yeah, the sorter of the poopy gems.
Yes. So it's actually what they are. They're in charge of the garbage, but their more essential purpose.
Maybe
to
we
the
need to
system-
change the name of the garbage
Yeah.
and not call it garbage.
Poop.
Waste treatment center.
Yes.
I love found object art as long as there's no poop involved. But I do love it for the beauty's sake of, and I do think metal people like to collect old things too,
Yeah.
right? We didn't mention
They
that.
love
but,
that. They want to make it a gem.
Yeah, to take something that someone threw away and make it a gem.
Yeah,
Polish that poop right up.
that's the large intestine's job. The recycler, the
Found
finder.
objects artiste.
Yes. We could call that could be the large intestine's
FOA.
name. Yeah, found object artiste. I love it. So the recycler, what do you think it's actually looking
So
for?
recycler sounds like a rejected superhero.
So the gem
The
finder.
recycler. No power.
So the gem finder, what do you think it's actually looking for in the poop?
Vitamins, nutrients.
Yes, like hormones.
Maybe if you swallowed a diamond.
Definitely if you swallowed a diamond. It's like hormones and digestive juices, things that the body can reuse.
Doesn't sound like it's like gems.
You know, when you think about it, they are gems to
I
the
know.
body.
For the body. That's right.
Yeah. And why does the colon have to be so long? Like, why isn't it just a chute that just like goes from the stomach right out to the...
That's a deeper question we've never asked on this podcast before.
No, we've never asked that. Why do we have a colon?
I don't know.
And it's because it takes time to sift and sort through all the garbage to reabsorb the good stuff. That's why we have a long colon.
So we need someone who's patient. And we need someone who's going to do it no matter what.
Yes.
And when they take a break and they take a vacation, guess what? Body goes right down.
Yes.
Health goes right down the toilet, right?
Yeah, you don't want a garbage strike in the city.
No, nothing goes down the toilet.
Yeah, and we realize how essential that job is.
Yeah,
when
and the
that
garbage
happens.
collector, the recycler, whatever we're going to call it, it's a dirty job overall. But honestly, I think it's a job of cleanliness.
Yes, because what's left will sparkle with cleanliness.
Hey, when garbage collectors go on strike in the city, what happens?
It's
right?
bad
The shit hits the
news.
fan, literally.
Yes.
Like we see how
Yes.
essential that job is. So think of it inside of your body.
Yeah.
When that goes on strike or shuts down, it gets out of balance.
Yeah.
It really does hit the fan.
It's actually one of the most spiritual organs in the body because it can just make us like purified. So that's a spiritual function in the body. It's really important to see that.
Yeah.
And most of the points on the channel are very spiritual.
I know every time I go to the bathroom, I pray. Everything comes out okay.
Okay. So just look at the first point.
That's a joke. That was a metal joke.
That was a metal joke. I hope all the metals got that one. So just look at the first point on the colon, which is on your forefinger, right by your nail.
Not the middle finger.
No,
Forefinger.
not the middle finger, the forefinger. You might not think that it's a spiritual part of the body, but look at Michelangelo's creation of Adam painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. What part of the body is featured in that painting?
Well, I'm sure the painter had the middle finger up, but he used the forefinger. That's a heck of a job. Okay, paint that giant thing on your back for like 3 years. I'm sure he wanted to use another finger, but no, it's the forefinger.
That's really funny. All right, so God gives life.
That's a tough job. That was a
tough job.
Probably crippled him. Like
I know. In the painting, God gives life to Adam. It's the spark of life through the forefinger. And that's us in the world. When we don't know what something is, because we've never encountered it before, what do?
Flip the finger. No. Reach out with the forefinger and touch it. Push that button.
Right.
Push the button. Push the button, Doctor Who. Push the button.
Push the button, right. So it represents our ability to explore the world, our curiosity. And this is a colon person, always curious, always checking everything out. It's about the senses, touch, smell, everything that instinct needs to process the world. Remember, this is a yang organ, so it is always processing. And so that's the spiritual part of you. It revitalizes you. It resurrects you from the dead. It gives things another chance, and it makes you sparkle.
Yeah, everything sparkles better, right?
Yes.
And sometimes that was so beautiful. I don't even the next thing I was going to say is sometimes we get too rigid in ourselves. Yeah. Like a metal person or someone who's metal first or second who gets too stuck on their morality or their integrity. That kind of makes them dry up on the inside, right? Kind of makes them not be
That is one of the
sparkle.
Things. That's one of the things that happens with metal people. So basically, when that happens, the colon's no longer doing the job of reabsorbing those essential, fluids, digestive, hormonal, whatever it is out of the poop that you have. And the more dried up you get, the more brittle you get. And then you can't even poop anymore. And you need some fluidity in your soul.
I think we have now officially set a record for the word poop in a podcast.
Yes.
Yes. So now you see why metals need to be very fluid.
Yes. And that's their yin on the outside, we already talked about. But the large intestine people are yang. And so all we've been talking about is the recycling function. But there's way more to it. There's also smell.
Oh, wonderful. The smell of poop.
Yes.
Everyone loves the great smell. Let's talk about the smell of poop, right? The stinky smell, the beautiful smell. I want to know what the sparkle smells like.
Well, actually, it's all smells. Smell is a part of intuition and instinct, like animals smell, because the lungs open into the nose in Chinese medicine, but there's actually no lung points on the nose area.
They don't want to smell that crap.
No, the last point of the colon channel ends at the corner of the nose. And guess what it's called?
I have no idea.
Welcome fragrance.
Yes. Yes.
Meaning smelling the poop when you go to the bathroom.
It's like when you say, my poop smells like daisies, right?
Yes,
Roses.
that's it. My poop smells like roses.
Because it's that welcome fragrance point.
Yes.
It's probably blocked.
So because to a metal person, they're willing to smell everything, even the stinky stuff. You say...
They love the stinky stuff.
Yeah, if you say to a metal person, oh, this went bad, will you smell it for me? They'll be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because that carries so much information for them, right?
Yeah. And it's more about instinct. Like, why does your dog want to smell other dogs' poop? Because, like you said.
Dogs have 10,000 times more smell.
Yeah.
And they now say that dogs can smell poop, because we're just using that word like crazy today. They can smell what state the other animal was in when they pooped, what they ate, what state they were in, all kinds of
emotional state.
Yeah.
Huh.
Crazy, right?
All right.
That brings a whole new level of poop smelling.
Yeah, there you go.
Not only do you get it 10,000 times more than a human, you can also tell physiological and psychological and all kinds of crazy things in the smell.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow. So smell is...
Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing up
I'm glad
completely useless facts about smell and poop.
I'm glad you enlightened us about that. So
I didn't get the exact details of the study, so please Google it.
Yeah.
Dog poop smelling insights.
Okay. So smell is connected to memory. That's what you're talking about, Jay. So when someone dies, the loved ones left behind often say they can smell them when their spirit revisits them. They remember the smell, and their noses can differentiate very subtle changes in smell like that.
Essentially, smell, it holds those memories, it triggers memories, even bad memories, but good memories, bad memories, it's that spiritual feeling. I get that.
Yeah, like, with your loved one who may be passed, you're reabsorbing the sweetness of when the person was with you. And essentially, that's the memory that the smell holds and triggers.
Even bad memories, right?
Yeah, that phrase, I smell a rat.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. It's like you're downwind something and you smell something negative coming downwind.
Or really bad. But I guess a little something that's sketchy.
Sketchy. There you go. Yeah. It's kind of similar to the 5 tastes, Jay, that we talked about with the spleen. There's there's 5 odors as well.
That's another, of course, there's 5 odors because
Yeah.
everything has to have a number.
Right.
Let's review the 5 odors.
Okay. So there's rancid, scorched, sweet, rotten, and putrid.
Nice. Those are not the feel-good smells of the summer.
No. So we should do another podcast on the smells, but I think we did cover it way back in pod 26. So you can go back to that episode.
What?
Yeah.
That was like 100 podcasts ago.
Yeah,
Like literally.
Yes, yes, exactly. But you can learn more about identifying a person's element through their smell. It's a diagnostic tool, but that's,
Yeah, it's called your nose.
Yeah. And it's not, we're not going to go into all that this time.
Kind of not what we're talking about today. We're just
Right.
jesting about it. We're joking.
But that's how the large intestine interprets smell through these 5 odors.
As a function of the colon, which we
Yes.
are talking about today.
Yes. So, if you smell a urine odor, what?
Who doesn't, right? Yay, come on over and we'll smell some urine odor.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That would be a putrid smell. And so, what does your large intestine do with that information?
I would imagine once you get a whiff of that smell, you're out. You wonder if you peed your pants.
Yes,
I'm like,
exactly.
what? Whoa, is that? No. What are the other options there, Lita? Tell me what the other options. If you get a whiff of urine,
You got it right. The point being that it's not just smelling the smell, it has to remember what that means and instinctively take action, especially
get
if
to
it's-
the bathroom.
Yeah, if it's urgent.
or pull off the path and let it go there. I don't know. Wow, this is just a crazy podcast. I don't even know what to say.
And it's not just the nose and the smell, but the colon encircles the mouth. And it's the only meridian in the body that crosses sides of the body, where the left side of the meridian ends up at the corner of the right nose and vice versa. So you might not think that's a big deal, but it is because unlike the lung, minister, yin types who don't, speak as much, the colon types talk a lot.
Yeah, it's like a stream of consciousness kind of talking, and they're culling through a bunch of thoughts and looking for gems.
And that's the key difference between the yin and yang aspects of metal. If you ask a lung person how they feel, it's difficult to get a big answer from them because they're very internal. And if you ask a colon person the same question, they'll talk about the process they're going through and maybe even describe it from a sensory point of view.
Much more external. Yeah, I get that. So Lita, we're going to wrap this up soon, but what are some of the challenges of the recycler,
Gem finder.
poopy gem finder, garbologist?
One of the challenges is when you start thinking everything is a gem and you're hanging on to stuff you shouldn't be hanging on to, that's still poopy. I remember Robin Williams did a bit about a colonoscopy that he had where he saw the hamburger he ate in 1987 on the screen.
Like he was holding on to it? Like he had still it.
It was in his colon still. So he was hanging on to
Or
it
someone
too
who can't
long.
like drive down the street without picking up some of the garbage. Or like maybe they are the kind of people who like to drive by and see boxes of stuff. They can't pass any junk. They got to go sort through it. They want to take it home. It can kind of get unruly, which is different than the water who collects lots of different things. But they need to like find that one thing in that whole box.
I mean, I suppose you can think of uses for most things, but, metal is also about letting go.
You would think that they'd want to let that stuff go. You know?
And the metals might just get overwhelmed sometimes figuring out where, which things are in the junk are the diamonds. And they're told all the time by everyone else that something they're into is not a gem or a diamond. But to them, it should be instinctual. They're just, they have to learn to trust their intuition. And a lot of people are going to tell them they're wrong. Like, that's just garbage. And they're like, no, look, it's beautiful. And like, they're being told, no, they're wrong.
I like that. That's a good point because they have to use their instincts.
And as children, children put everything in their mouths all the time, which is not acceptable socially. So right from the get-go, people are saying, don't do that, so that's why.
So why are they putting things in their mouth?
It's just because they're so sensual.
And they're
Metal
curious?
People are and they're curious, and they just want to
wanna smell and feel and touch.
taste and touch. And so sometimes the children that are metal, they get told that's bad, and their instinct gets shut down. And now another big difference between the minister and the gem finder or recycler is that the gem finder is always processing to get the learning of what are gems. It's a very externalized yang process, often more in the public than the minister. Even though overall the person is still yin compared to wood or fire, the ministers don't feel the need to speak as often.
Unless it's 4 a.m. and it's the cock-a-doodle-doodle time at dawn.
Yes.
Or pre-dawn.
Yes.
Then they're speaking up like crazy
Yes.
for everyone to wake up.
Exactly. So that's when they need to issue those edicts. Ministers can speak in public when they have to, for sure. But they're not doing it to learn something.
They're just doing to wake you up.
Their service.
Their service.
Yeah.
I'm jesting. Yes, they have a role to play, like the judge in the courtroom. It's very good to have metal judges, okay? They're typically quiet until they have to speak. That's the yin lung type. They show up because you have to for yourself, to be yourself, which happens to be in the case of the minister of breath. Then you are in service to the rest of the kingdom. Black and white, right or wrong, this is it.
Whereas the recycler, the gem finder, if given the opportunity, they might talk all the time to help you find the gems for yourself.
All right. So let's talk about how to be with the minister or the recycling type.
Okay. When you're working with a minister, it's about spaciousness. You have to be willing to encourage the silence while still being engaged. And to remember that you're not trying to get them to emote on the outside, but to feel profundity on the inside.
And how would you like to do that?
Well, you have to follow their minds, which almost feels like you're traveling through air, watching someone on that magic carpet ride with complete freedom to go anywhere.
Yes, sounds a little fun and sounds a little scary, but yes.
It truly is. But you also have to be able to do sarcasm. The wit is a bit twisted. You have to put on your British humor ears to understand that level of humor.
Yes. If you haven't watched some British humor, we have like Absolutely Fabulous. And you can watch Patsy. She's the metal character, and she does it. You could definitely get your Patsy on.
Yes.
Absolutely. There's a lot of metal humor, but that's probably my favorite.
And you have to be able to totally be comfortable in yourself under their X-ray vision. The eyes can be unnerving to some people because it looks almost like cold, and society wants them to express warmth, but that would be forcing them to pull their yang outward to the outside, and that's not good for them. And they also speak simply, and they mean what they say. If they say something is no big deal, for example, they mean that. So you don't have to go ask them a ton of questions about it. But if they say something really sucked, you also don't want to argue with them. You have to be with them. And we talk about the lose-lose, you get to just share the suckiness of it with them.
Which is a beautiful thing sometimes. It really is. Okay, they look at the world as where I'm losing or where someone else is losing. They see loss everywhere. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
It's just like this, the way they are. I think it's beautiful.
It's the opposite of wood, win-win. Wood, people see a win possibility everywhere. Metal sees a lose opportunity everywhere.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
And for the gem finders, the recyclers, the large intestines, there's not as much sarcasm. There may be a sense of loss in them as well, but that's okay because colon loses all the time. It's the recovery of the gems that they focus on in the process of the loss. It's like the miracle of life. Where in life is the wonder? That's what they're focused on. The transformation of loss into something profound and beautiful.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like some metal movies, focus on the beauty and the loss. You can kind of tell right away when you're watching a metal movie. They see the beauty and the tiny little miracles.
Yeah, and then there's the funny ones too.
Right, which I prefer the funny. I love metal humor.
Metal is hysterically funny. I mean, think of John Cleese.
He was the master of being the fool.
Yeah.
Right? Like he brought it to like this maestro performance of being like the village idiot.
Yeah.
I love British humor.
Yes. The fool is the only one, like in Shakespeare's King Lear, that would take the risk to make the king laugh because, it could have been off with his head.
Yeah, or say it like it is, or tell the truth in riddles that they may or may not get, right?
Yeah.
With a slightly sarcastic humor, maybe.
Yeah, and the fool never knew whether he was going to be rewarded
or off with your head.
Yes.
Or thrown in the galleys.
Yes.
Or drawn and quartered. I don't know.
Yeah. So just because metals are soft and fragile on the outside, don't mistake them for weakness, like we said before. One way to talk to metals, especially the recyclers, gem finders, because instinct comes from deep in the bowels, talk about the senses, like your animal instinct. So if you say, what do you think? they don't really know how to answer that question. But if you say, what do your guts say? What is your gut telling you? Now that's a question they'll love.
Or what is your instincts?
Yeah.
What's instinctually what's going on? Yeah, that's
So,
cool.
So the lungs, they hold something. We said they hold the breath, but you can't just hold the breath. You have to breathe out. So they hold the space between heaven and earth, which in Chinese theory we call the void. It's the space between the in-breath and the out-breath, between life and death, between the past and the future, between sublime and the ridiculous.
Yeah, so essentially you can kind of think of it as like it's the space of balance, especially between the connection and loss. Like listening to like the chanting monks.
Yeah.
Okay, and seeing it no different or feeling it no different than maybe the Rolling Stones. Although they do like rock and roll.
Yes.
But listening to like the sublime and the different and the chanting monks or the bowls or and then the same thing as like they could get the same feeling as like crazy rock and roll.
And it's a challenge even for metal to stand in the space of the void. There are too many human beings causing distractions all the time.
Yeah, and I guess it's the metal's job to focus on the light of the heart all day and then turn around and issue the edicts, like you said.
Yeah, or for the colon recycler, it's your job to be listening to your instincts all day about what is worth keeping and what you need to throw out.
Yeah, staying in the wonder of life, even though you're maybe knee deep in the poop. Right?
Or the dumpster, right?
Or the dumpster diving, yeah.
So we all...
Looking for gems.
Looking for gems. So we can all learn from metals. It's about having integrity.
And maybe think about how we can all hold a space and trust our instincts without making judgments about worth or worthiness.
Yes.
Right? Like no judgments. But remember, and it's, they are the judges and that's the right and the wrong and you can't bend the rules.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of think about that.
Yep. And
it's a balance.
And as soon as you get into your head about it, then you've lost the instinct again. So it's
That's not great for metals.
Yeah.
That's ER on a bad day.
Yes.
That's when he can't get his tail pinned on and he can't find it.
Yeah.
All right, go. Have fun.
Okay.
Be that spiritual metal person.
Yeah, and hold that space between...
And thank you for breathing for us.
Yeah.
Moving those lungs.
Yes.
And moving that poop out.
Yes. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there. We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast, and if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at lita@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog. Zena is in a mood. Zena, come down here. Not only do you get it 10,000, there's the poop smeller. Zena.
We're melting down.
I'm melting down. I'm losing my fish, and it's going right down the conveyor belt.
All right. That's got to be a blooper.
No floofers. No poopers or bloopers on this show. This is the worst podcast ever.
Don't put that in a blooper, Kyra.